What's going on, guys? It's Alex here, and welcome back to another full review of Chainsaw Man Chapter 155. This chapter bridges the gap between Part 1 and Part 2, showing us what happened directly after Denji adopted Yuta at the park, and a continuation of the conversation that Makima had with Denji after he opened the door, remembered that he had killed his father in self-defense. But starting out with the chapter, a civilian who's a part of the mob who's about to kill Yuta after Biram faked that Yuta was the one who caused Biram's injuries, even though, he was shot in broad daylight by the public safety devil hunters. Well, this guy actually defends Yuta, and we get an update on the time frame because apparently the last 15 chapters or so have taken place in only 2 days, which sort of explains why society hasn't completely collapsed. The civilian then tells everyone to come back to their senses, which actually does work for a moment. But Biram, realizing that he's out of bullets to kill Yuta, takes advantage of the mob's paranoia and fear and points the gun to his head, faking that he's being controlled by Yuta, begging a mob of people to save him from deleting himself. And honestly, if I didn't hate Biram as a character, I'd say that he put on a really good Oscar-winning performance, but I think this is really meant to display and show us how insane and psychotic Biram is, being able to be a cold-blooded mastermind, setting Denji up for the worst day of his life just for killing someone who likely never cared about him, to crying for his life at the snap of the moment. Yeah, it really is showing off how crazy he really is. And even though Yuta tries to deny this, with all the reason and compassion that these people had before, with what happens next, it pretty much goes out the window. And before we can see what actually happens to Yuta as she's pretty much about to get attacked, we're hit with a flashback of Yuta's childhood, and let me tell you, anytime we get a flashback to a person's past in the world of Chainsaw Man, it usually means death isn't far away. So RIP Yuta, I'm pretty sure she got off screen, like our favorite cat Maori, RIP Maori. With this flashback taking place directly after the events of Part 1, with Yuta going to Denji's apartment and living with him for the very first time. We're getting an interesting line of dialogue when she first met Denji. She pitied him, and he had a strong desire for Denji's heart. Denji's heart being Pachita, and this information is interesting because according to Kishibe, when a devil dies, they respawn and no longer have memories of their past life. And obviously we know this isn't completely true because the angel devil remembered the sound that he heard before he died in hell and went to earth. Which tells us that some devils, depending on how strong they are, or possibly how human they were, they retain some of their memories and feelings of their predecessors. And going off this, we can sort of tell, despite Makima saying that she always hated Denji, this wasn't always the case. She did actually pity and feel some level of guilt for the things that she was going to do to them, because deep down, she knew the two of them could relate to each other, but her obsession with Chainsaw Man alone for other flaws outweighed the pity that she felt towards him. And Yuta, following the motto of every girl that Denji has ever met or came in contact with, at first plotted to kill him by following the same plan that her predecessor had, filling him up with happiness and then destroying it all for the sake of finding her place in the world. But instead, the opposite happened, with Denji filling Yuta up with happiness and love, and giving her a purpose in being part of his family, and Yuta accepting the love that Denji displayed towards her. Where eventually, Yuta was able to see Denji as an actual person, the more and more she began to love him. And we actually get a look at how Yuta viewed Denji the first time that she actually saw him, and likely throughout the story before this entire arc got started. Which shows us that even though Denji was a crappy dad, at the end of the day, he did succeed in getting Yuta to view him as an actual person, and treating other people with love, which is something that Makima could never have done. Then it cuts away to Kid Denji, deep in his subconscious, surrounded by a black void with someone speaking to him, which is serving more as a continuation of the same conversation he had with Makima in Part 1, which I'll put up on here, with Kid Denji seemingly saying that even though he's never had a family, he was always drawn to that word because it's something that he's always wanted, but he chose to throw it all away to be Chainsaw Man. And then we see that the Kid Denji himself admits that a person like him could never have had a family. After all, he killed his own father. And if you count Aki and Power and Yuta and his pets, who I'm pretty sure did die off screen in this chapter, he's directly and indirectly gotten his family killed 3 times in a row, which is absolutely tragic. But it really does convey the message, so as long as Denji is Chainsaw Man, he'll never have any type of peace or have it for a while, only to have someone snatch it all away. which is something that even Kishibe at the end of part 1 and Ishida earlier on in the story tried to convey to Denji. I mean, you can't eat your cake and have your icing every single time without there being some type of consequences in life. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And in the final page of the chapter, we see Denji lying in a hospital bed, and that's how the chapter ends. Let me know what you guys thought of this chapter, and once again, do you think Naruto was off-screen? And how do you think Denji will deal with this loss? I mean, personally, I'm thinking that Naruto actually did die in this chapter. But more importantly, who do you think is going to visit Denji at the hospital? Because, I mean, someone's got to check Denji out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.